Yeah, welcome. Jeff joins us from the Bay Area. Jeff is, if you haven't heard of Jeff, he's fantastic. He's a journalist, he's a cultural critic, he's an author, a podcaster. His book that I love so much is called Can't Stop, Won't Stop: The History of Hip Hop Generation. It's really one of the better books ever written about hip hop. And that's hard to do, man, because there's a lot of books about hip hop, but Jeff really got in there and got some really amazing insights and quotes and, you know, taught me stuff I didn't know, and I know a lot about hip hop, so that was
You
really
do.
cool.
You absolutely do.
He also has a Substack called Notes from the Edge, and he does a podcast of the same name. He also has a podcast called Edge of Reason, and also I should tout your latest book, which is called Water Mirror Echo, which examines Bruce Lee's impact on Asian American identity and global culture. That's a whole other podcast to talk about Bruce Lee. I would love to do
Yeah,
that,
that's
but
awesome.
we're gonna dive into hip hop here, and I thought I've been wanting to talk about hip hop on this podcast for so long, but I felt like I needed to have a real expert on to really school us, old school us on what we need to know and to both celebrate it and sort of understand where Gen X falls in the story of hip hop, which is
Mm,
actually a pretty major role. But
yeah,
before we get into that, let's start with you first. First rap you ever heard? What do you remember? Do you remember the moment?
yeah, probably Rapper's Delight.
Me too.
And yeah, I mean that's our age group, that's our cohort, and probably like you all, like we were just everybody in the halls, in the school halls, in the locker room, and that kind of thing, trying to like memorize all the lyrics.
Right, right.
To the first to the like short version, and to the whole 15-minute version. But yeah, that was it for me.
That was
Like
seminal. That was
yeah,
probably like what, early '80s, like late or
No, that
90s?
was 1979, 19
Yep.
well, maybe in Hawaii, we might have gotten it, like, a little later. Maybe it was
Were you in Hawaii at the time?
yeah, I was born and raised in Hawaii,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, so, I feel like I was part of the generation that came into hip hop when it started, like, cruising in on these, like, international, like, like, when Japan is getting it, that's, like, when we're getting it, that type of vibe.
Yep. Yeah.
Even though, the US colonized Hawaii, so it's an American state, but yeah, I feel like that's, like, how we got it. But the other vibe was there's a lot of transportation, transit, it's early here on the
Transient,
West
I know, it's
Coast.
freaking early, I don't know why I
It wa it
decided.
wa it was a lot of transit between the West Coast and Hawaii, so, like, we got tutters, we got strutters, we got poppers, we got lockers, we got all of those folks, like, coming back and forth from Los Angeles and the Bay Area to Hawaii, and so those dance forms actually predated, us hearing Rapper's Delight, in
That's really
some
interesting to
ways.
hear because here all the way in Hawaii, here I am in New York. The first time I ever heard Rapper's Delight was in Tarrytown, New York, which is like a suburb of New
Yep,
York City.
yep, we grew up,
And
yep.
there was a guy named Kamathi Evans who I have to reach out to because this guy basically changed my life. He didn't know it at the time, but Kamathi, there was a middle school dance and he put on Rapper's Delight, and it was the first time I'd ever heard that record, and I was freaking out. And
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know what it was. I just loved it so much. And like you, it just like boom. It was like, who knew? There was like a moment pre Rapper's Delight and then the post Rapper's Delight moment. Little did I know it would be like
Yeah.
so. But that, I kind of always was under the impression, even though Rapper's Delight was one of the first, and you'll tell us this was one of the first raps ever to be put on vinyl, right? It was a very early rap in the vinyl era. I mean, there were other raps on vinyl before that, but it seemed like the first one to really go mainstream.
Yeah.
Um, I thought it was kind of unique to, like, the East Coast because I
Mhm.
felt like I was because of my proximity to the Bronx, even though, I mean, the difference between Westchester and the Bronx is stark, it was still 20 minutes away.
Yeah.
Um, I still felt like I had and I remember I couldn't even find Rapper's Delight in my local, Sam Goody at the mall. They
Oh,
didn't
wow.
have Rapper's Delight, so I had to actually go to the Bronx to buy the record.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah.
Interesting. But anyway, that's interesting that it was that even, 6 whatever it is, 5,000 miles away, you guys still were able to get that record. It's incredible.
Yeah,
It
we
shows
got it. It was a worldwide hit, right? Like, I mean, you
that
have people in Jamaica and
yeah.
and Brazil covering it and kind of flipping it, obviously in their own kind of Afro-diasporic way. You had cover versions in in like the Netherlands and Germany and,
Wow.
you know, and in France and Spain. And so I think there's one, I think I'm pretty sure we did this book called Born in the Bronx, you know, a while back, an amazing um, sort of pictorial history of the early years of hip hop that Johann Kugelberg had put together. And a lot of the stuff came from his collection. But I remember there was a page, I was using this for a while in lectures, of just the cover versions of Rapper's Delight all around the
Really?
world. Yeah, and I mean, like, why would Jamaica need to cover Rapper's Delight? But that was, I think, how much it ignited, you know?
Well, that's so
Like,
interesting also
yeah,
because that music came from Jamaica. I mean,
that's what I
right?
mean. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
the original rap is from
yeah. Why would you do it in Brazil? There's already like a long tradition in Brazil of it's not toasting, but it's similar. It's like freestyle rapping over like a, you know, their, tambourine and that kinda thing. So there's, it was
well,
something
so
that
what was
really
it?
was. What's up?
I tried to figure out what was it about Rapper's Delight that made it go so mainstream because like I said, there was raps before, there was
Mm,
example rap. I mean, Cool
mhm,
DJ Herc was well, he was doing more of the DJ thing, but
yeah.
there was raps before, there's like the Cold Crush Crew or the Cold Crush Brothers, what was it?
Cold Crush Brothers, yeah.
Cold Crush Brothers.
Fantastic 5 who face
Yeah,
off in Wild Style. Yeah, no, I think what it was, like, it was geared towards the commercial audience, you know? So you had, like, if we can go all the way back to that particular period, like, hip hop was really a live thing. You know,
mm,
it was the type of thing that you went and experienced live, you know?
interesting,
So
yeah.
you went on the weekends or you went, you know, on a Thursday night to go see Cold Crush Brothers, you know, and they would do these routines and it would be part of like this long DJ set that was going on. So it was like a flow, right? It's a flow as opposed to a moment in time, which is what a record is. Does that
Yep.
make sense? So
Yeah, totally.
you know, so they're doing these rhymes and then they're doing the interstitials, like they're getting the crowd hype and that kind of stuff. It's almost, it's a different function, right?
Yeah,
When you had Rapper's Delight, what you had was, you know, a record that Sylvia Robinson like manufactured to market this stuff worldwide. So she had these two unknown rappers from New Jersey, and she had, you know, Big Bank Hank, who was like Grandmaster Caz's manager because he had the sound system,
yeah,
and Grandmaster Caz lent him his lyrics. So you got these two guys, you know, who nobody's ever heard of, and then you have Big Bang Hank, and that, you know, they kind of structure it with the house band into like a song,
right.
and then they cut the radio edit for it. So it's like it's as if you kind of packaged, you know, I don't know if anybody's listening from DC or the DMV area, but it's like if you had packed, it's like they did the same thing with go-go music at about the same time. Um,
A production. Right.
yeah, and then go-go never made it out of the live format
Yeah.
to record, but hip hop did.
Get
And
translated
so
somehow. Yeah,
yeah, so it translates to this portable disc that can then be, you know, sold all around the world.
that's so interesting.
And yeah,
I remember you saying, I
yeah,
think I read in your book about, people were even we were talking about how there's a 15-minute version of Rappers Delight. People were like, "I couldn't believe they got it down to 15 minutes." It's like usually like
yeah.
a 5-minute show. Like
That was
that
Chuck. Yeah, Chuck D said that. Yeah, Chuck D, the when the he recalls the night that he first heard Rapper's Delight when he was in front of the mic. So,
yeah,
like, you know, Good Times is the jam, and that's the thing that everybody's playing at the party. He goes up and he sort of freestyles over it. And then, like, the DJ mixed in Rapper's Delight, and so he's suddenly like, "Oh, what's that?" He kinda,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
starts lip syncing to it, and everybody comes up to him the next day and they're like, "Man, that was incredible. Like that rap that you did, like 15 minutes straight. Wow." And Chuck was going, "I didn't do that. I just sort of lip synced
I
it."
pretended.
Yeah, yeah,
So, I have this, because we both grew up in the '80s,
yeah.
so influenced by rap and loving rap, I have a real bond to that era of rap, and I feel like sort of in the conversation of hip hop now that we're like 50 years, what is it, 60 years since these days, since the really early days of hip hop, sometimes the '80s is brushed over a little bit. in the, like, as the importance of it. Like, people focus a lot on they kind of almost feel like it started in the '90s, right? Like, that's because that was really what's considered, like, the golden era of rap, like, the whole Native Tongues era and Jay-Z. I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
times people I mean, maybe you disagree with that.
Well,
And then
I kinda don't believe in a golden age, but I think when folks talk about the golden age, they talk about something like '87 to, like, '97. '97 is really the year
right.
Biggie dies, and it's also the year that hip hop reaches this sort of commercial inflection point, so yeah.
So
Yeah.
why do you think the '80s is sort of underrated or I mean, first, before I even ask that question, let's talk about some of, like, the seminal moments of the '80s because there are certain moments I mean, we talked Rappers Delight. To me, that's like for me, that's my origin story, right? Like, that's
Yeah,
when I first
yeah,
discovered
yeah,
rap. But then to me so I was trying to think back and did a little research about, like and your book covers a lot of these moments. Some of the I mean, we could skip ahead a little or even before, but if we just look at the '80s in whole, like, what were some of the biggest moments that sort of changed everything?
yeah.
I mean, one thing, it's sort of almost, uh, people forget about this maybe, but it was Rapture, right? The fact that Rapture came out,
Right at the
and
beginning of the decade, yeah, '81,
right at the
yeah.
beginning, '81,
Yeah,
Blondie,
yeah,
people don't you used to take it for granted now when somebody raps in the middle of a song, but nobody did that back
yeah,
then, right? Nobody really knew what rap was unless you were us. Like
yeah,
mainstream culture did not know what rap was. So can you talk about that? Like, what was it like, how that happened? Do you remember?
yeah. Yeah, so, hip hop, I think first of all, Rappers Delight kinda changes the game, right? This is a largely live type of, music. You have to go to the clubs, so by virtue of that fact, it's already limited to a particular geographic area, right? Which
Right.
is literally the black clubs, brown clubs in New York City, Uptown mostly, the Bronx, you've got parties going off in Brooklyn, and the Lower East Side. But you have to be there type of
Yep.
scene. And I think once the record comes out, everybody's like, "Oh, there's a lot more to be done here. There's more money to be made." A lot of the rappers who are at the top of the scene, like Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, are like, "Oh, we can make a they've been trying to get them to make a record for a long time, the independent
Right.
record label folks, and they're like, "Oh, we can make a record and publicize our live gig on
Yeah.
Saturday." Like
Yeah.
that's like an advertisement for our live gig.
Yeah,
They
it's all about
they
the
didn't
live
really like see the future
the
coming,
money.
right?
Yeah.
Right. But I think what happens is, increasingly you have the avant-garde, the downtown punk rock, and sort of new wave avant-garde folks who are mixing it up in the art galleries.
Andy
So they're
Warhol. Yeah, and, like
right. And they're like, by day they're in the art galleries and stuff, and they're like championing graffiti art,
right.
by these teenagers, from all parts of the city. And then by night, they're wanting to party, and so they're inviting, the Rocksteady crew to come and dance. Fab Five Freddy is over there making connections. His book is coming out, by the way.
Yeah, I wanna have
Gonna
him
be
on
a
the
really important book
yeah.
to read. Fab Five Freddy is making connections. Jean-Michel Basquiat's there meeting Keith Haring. They're all sort of hanging out, and the soundtrack is the music of the Zulu Nation DJs. And so this is where you start hearing post-punk in New York City trying to go funky, right? And you
Yeah.
also hear people like Blondie who, this is a group
CBGB. Yeah,
CBGBs, but they've been really, really close to the scene because of Fab Five Freddy, and Grandmaster Flash. They're like, "Oh, what the hell? Let's make a rap record."
yeah,
Like, why not, right?
right. Same
And,
thing. Yeah.
like Gwen Stefani is gonna wanna do that later on, right? Like
Yeah.
20 years later or whatever. Like, "Why don't I make a rap record?" "Sure." Like, "We'll bring in Eve." But it's a type of vibe where, uh, this is like, Blondie's already a huge group, and so when they make Rapture, it becomes a worldwide hit, and that kind of continues to spread, the news, and then you actually have the video where they've got
Yeah.
graffiti, they've got Fab, they've got, Jean-Michel, they've got all these folks, in it, and they're all kind of partying, and it looks like a lot of fun, and they're signaling this is the new style,
Right.
to fast forward up to 1986 and the Beastie Boys. But yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so so Rapture, big moment, and again, I'm just gonna throw things out at you, and you can add
Yeah.
things too.
Yeah.
Another big moment for me was when The Message came out. And by the
Yes.
way, when I turn this into a podcast, I am definitely gonna start playing the songs. Because
You
I
got
feel like
to. You have to. Yeah.
to do this without actually playing the soundtrack is
Do
hard
it
for me. But
properly.
anyway,
Yeah, do it
I
properly
gotta do
for
I could
sure.
probably actually do it. But anyway, so the message, I don't know how many people remember the message, hearts for that one, but, I remember the message. It wasn't actually, to me, the first message rap that there had been. I feel like there had been other raps that were about life on the streets and, like, weren't just about bragging and boasting and that kinda stuff. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the message was the first one.
Oh,
But
no,
that
you're right. You're right. There
like,
were other
It's
stuff
Like
there.
That from Run DMC, maybe that was
Well,
later.
that was later. Yeah, that
That
was
was
definitely
later?
later. Yeah. But there were other, like, independent records that had come out that were
Right.
commenting on, sort of social commentary in
Yeah,
the
the
vein
social
of, like,
commentary.
Gil Scott-Heron and, The Last Poets and stuff for sure. There were
Right.
too.
So the message, yeah, oh, yeah, Gil Scott-Heron, of course, the revolution will be televised. Um, won't be televised. But so, yeah, so talk about that. So the message is funny because there's a lot of that's Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, but my understanding of that was that he couldn't really get, like, the whole group to even wanna do that rap, right? They weren't really into it.
Well, he
They're
didn't
like,
wanna do it. He
yeah,
actually didn't wanna
Grandmaster
do it.
Flash
Yeah.
didn't do it. Yeah,
Yeah, so Sylvia Robinson, again, she's a really important figure. She's like the head of Sugar Hill Records.
right,
So it's an independent, black-owned, black woman-owned, record label that's based in Inglewood, New Jersey.
which is where
Again,
I used to
more
work.
more shout outs to New
What's Up
Jersey.
Twist magazine, where I used to work, was in
Okay.
Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, which is funny.
And
Didn't
so
Big Hank work at a pizza parlor or something in Englewood? I think.
No,
Anyway,
yeah, so I think she was in the Bronx, and she actually
okay.
visited and walked in, and that's how she heard Hank playing one of the tapes that they had recorded of the Cold Crush Brothers,
Wow.
and he's rapping along to it, and she's like, her not her, but her son is like, "Oh, hey, like, you're a rapper?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." You know?
Right, he
And,
wasn't, he
"Oh,
was the
come on, yeah,
manager.
come on and meet
Yeah,
these other guys, we're gonna make this recording," and that's how they make Rapper's Delight. So the next thing that comes along, right, is Sylvia. She's an independent record label owner. She's like looking for the next thing, which is what you're doing if you're in the culture industry, right? You're always trying to figure out what the next thing's going to be. And 1982 is a really tough time for everybody across the US, but especially for Black communities. It's it's like kind of like now, like where we are now in the second Trump administration. That's where
yeah,
we are in the first Reagan administration.
that's
So you can
interesting. Yeah,
imagine,
well,
right?
and
Reagan,
you if
what's that?
all the maybe all out of all this chaos and horribleness, some great music will arrive, hopefully.
We can hope. We should
No.
That's one of the things we can hope for as well as, working for all the things that we need.
Right.
But I think at that particular moment, right, like there's high unemployment, the social services are being slashed. There's a feeling of real despair, I think in a lot of
Yeah.
communities. And so she's thinking, we have to take rap back to its roots and being able to tell the truth about what's really going on in the world.
Mm,
And of course, there's been a long, long line of this, right? We could look at some of James Brown's raps in the
right.
1960s where he's talking about heroin or he's talking about, having pride in yourself and those kinds of things. That's what she's thinking. And so one of her house band musicians, guy who goes by the name of Duke Booty, writes
Mhm,
this song that's actually really influenced. It's more down tempo, it's really influenced by Sly and Robbie, Sly Dunbar, rest in peace.
mm,
Um, and what they're doing in Jamaica, Compass Point Studios for Tom Tom Club later on, and Grace Jones, and a whole bunch of other amazing artists. And they've got a really intense sound that kind of reflects like a sort of sense of authenticity, a sort of sense of rootedness.
yeah.
So he's experimenting with that, and he creates this musical track, and he's like, "I've been writing these lyrics about how tough times are." And she's like, "This is great. This is gonna be our next big label hit."
Oh, cool.
And she's like, "Let's take this to Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five because they're sort of our number one group." And Flash is like, no, we don't. This is what people go to parties
Yeah,
to get away from, right? The other
right.
guys in the crew are like, "No, no, no, no." But Melly Mel, right?
Yeah,
Rah, he's
yeah,
like
terrible.
the Melly Mel is like, "Hey, man, like, I've got these lyrics that I've written, like, why don't you check this out?" And it's sort of this story of a low-level criminal who, like, goes bad, he falls into this downward spiral, and he ends up hanging himself. I'm not
Right.
giving anything away because you probably
Yeah.
heard the message.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And they're like, "Okay, let's go. Let's make this record." And so they're because Melly Mel's on board, they're able to put it out as Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. And it becomes huge because it hits that moment where they like this is something that people wanna hear. People wanna hear like, this is, like, the truth being represented. This is not what they're showing you on TV. This is not like, you know, smiling Ronald Reagan, Morning in
Yeah.
America. This is, like, some
Was that
real stuff.
Yeah. As Chuck D said, the CNN, well, that was later, but the CNN
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
street. Yeah. Um, that is so interesting. I didn't really know the full story there. So in a way, so the Bootsy Booty,
Big booty, yeah.
did he write the "Don't Push Me because 'Cause I'm Close to the Edge," or was that Melly Mel? Like, how did they combine their was it that he wrote the music and Melly Mel put the lyrics in? Like the
No, he
peanut
like, Duke Booty, I think, wrote those lyrics, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah,
and wrote, like, the first few verses of
broken glass
yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that The Broken Glass Everywhere, um is Melly Mel. So Melly Mel comes in, that's his verse, that's his original
yeah,
verse. Yeah.
amazing.
Mhm.
One of the great records, The Message. I am so excited to play this on my podcast version. Boom. Okay, that's where I play it. You talk a lot about in your book, and you just mentioned Zulu Nation when you're talking about Blondie. So
Yeah.
I would say that Africa Bambaata's Planet Rock was another huge moment, kind of like shifted everything. Can we talk a little bit about that rap and about him and that would be interesting.
So
And that fact.
the 2 records are sort of twinned, right,
Yeah.
by history and by this moment. 1982 was a really important year for hip hop. Um, and because this is sort of the next sort of like if you're looking at this sort of chart, right? Rapper's Delight and then like 1982, the summer of 1982, where The Message and Planet Rock are these 2 hits, and they're twinned in a way because on the one hand, you've got, like, The Message, which is trying to present, like, this very realist, like, point of view, like, this is what's really going on the streets, like, this is the stuff that you're not getting on the network news at night.
Yep.
Um, and Grandmaster Flash's well, the Message, like, kind of holds that space because it's sort of then the jumping off point for, groups that come along later, like Public Enemy, Boogie Down Productions,
Yeah.
you know, Nas, right? Like all of these folks that come on and to a large extent as well, you can also put in NWA in there. You can put in all of these other folks who say their Ice Cube is talking about reality rap, right? Like there's a line that you can trace directly to the message. And the other one that is kind of happening is Planet Rock is like an expression of like Zulu Nation philosophy at that particular time. And the Zulu Nation is like really a former gang that's become
Mm.
sort of known now more for organizing parties.
Right.
And so like the core of Zulu Nation comes from the gang era, right? But it's also sort of because of Bambaata's force of personality, transformed into a group that's looking at all of these different types of philosophies. Like Bambaata is influenced by, the Nation of Islam. He's influenced by Afrocentrism. He's influenced by like aliens. He's influenced by conspiracy like theories, way out conspiracy
Movie
theories.
called Zulu that apparently is a Michael Caine movie, right?
Yeah, well, that was where the idea came from. So it's sort of but it presents sort of this that Zulu Nation takes on this sort of cosmology, and they're kind of related to this utopian
Mm.
picture of what hip hop could be, of this force of taking like the death drive and turning it into a creative drive,
Yep.
if you will, right? So if you listen to the lyrics of it, it's a lot more, it's playful, right? It's like it's a lot more open. It's literally like you're zooming through the universe. It's like it's sunrise, right?
Yeah.
It's very it's very utopic. It's sort of like the hip hop version of the Summer of Love, if you will,
Yeah.
on Planet Rock, right? Like this is all like we're all here on this planet and we're rocking together, and it's sort of this also this utopian vision of folks living in peace, like across different types of cultural backgrounds. And so the two of them kind of fit together, right? You got this like this hardcore reporting from the street side, and you got this sort of like universal like image of uplift that like has links, right? Back to like John Coltrane and Alice Coltrane and Pharoah Sanders and spiritual jazz in so many types of ways. And I think that that's like the interesting duality that kind of gets
Yeah,
set
that's
up in
so interesting.
1982.
And of
Yeah.
course, Planet Rock is also I think when I think of Planet Rock, I think of breakdancing because it's more you can't really break dance to the message. I mean, people probably have, but Planet
Well, that
Rock
was yeah. That was the point, right? Like, Flash is like, folks are not gonna dance to this. That's
yeah,
what they
right.
wanna
That
be in
was
a club
they're
for, right?
gonna
It's like,
party, yeah.
it's probably in the high 100s BPMs, and Planet Rock, solid, boom, 130. Like, that's the speed at
People
which you're
still
getting busy.
sample, although we should mention that Planet Rock that was also interesting that he reached into an obscure German electronic band, Kraftwerk, and found this beat and
Yeah.
a break. He basically found a break and then, and
Yeah.
made it his own. Yeah.
And sped it up actually, the like, that's like not yeah. But that's such an interesting thing about, like, influence, right? Like, Kraftwerk was influenced to make that kind of music because they were trying to make, like, a German industrial version of James Brown. They were influenced by James Brown,
Oh, that's so interesting.
So, like, a group like
Yeah.
Can is yeah, Can is taking it in a oh, sorry. Can is taking it in, like, a more of a tribal kind of rock type of dimension, and Kraftwerk is trying to, like, have the computers playing James Brown.
That's wild. I
Yeah,
hadn't realized that.
yeah.
All right. Other incredible moments from the '80s that changed everything. I mean, I know there are my moments, right? Like, for example, and I don't think this is probably goes down in history as one of the great moments, but when Grandmaster Flash put out The Adventures of Grandmaster Flash and the Wheels of Steel, for me,
That's
that was a seminal
yeah,
moment
yeah,
because that was the first DJ record. Like, that was
yeah,
the first time we heard DJs, and that apparently is all live, which is unbelievable. He's
absolutely.
doing that in real time. But
Mhm.
that record, if you guys don't know, I totally download this off of, or totally stream this one. But it is Grandmaster Flash showing what a DJ can do, right? Like
Yeah,
scratching and cutting
yeah,
to me, that was I must have listened to that record 10,000 times. Like, like I
yeah,
just as a
yeah.
DJ, it's the coolest thing I'd ever heard in my life. So that was a big moment for me. I was surprised they ever even released that record, but that was cool. Um, the
I
other
love that
thing that
record, and
I
that's like
love
the beginning of turntablism, right? Every
right,
DJ I could say without a doubt, every DJ here in the Bay Area, all the Filipino American DJs, like, we're listening to that and going, "How do I replicate that?" As a way
right,
of kind of beginning to understand how to, like, create compositions, uh,
right.
on the
You know what's another
turntables.
one like that, and this is going very deep, uh is the lesson 1, 2, and 3 by
Yeah,
W.D. and Steinsky,
yeah,
which is another one. A friend of mine actually was DJing a party, he said a DJ went and did that live. Like, actually, some DJs can do lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3 live.
yeah.
Like,
Well, that was
that
for
was not
us, just yeah, just speaking of my crew, like, my old crew, Soul Sides Quantum, like, that was how, like, DJ Shadow and then folks like Cut Chemist and stuff, like, taught themselves too to create compositions, and,
right.
um,
I'm not sure you can even
and Shadow's doing it on, like, a little 4-track cassette,
yeah.
recorder, and then, Cut coming along later, and I'm just trying to figure out how to do it on 3 turntables and stuff like that, so yeah, totally. Yeah.
So I feel like maybe the next era, and I'm probably skipping ahead, is like the Run DMC era. They kind
Mhm.
of were like the next because they also made rap very mainstream, but they did things that were also, like, on the street considered to be very cool.
Right, yeah.
What would you say, like, Run DMC's contribution is to sort of the history of rap?
So, like, if you kinda pull back a little bit, right? Like, one of the things that I started noticing was, oh, there's a way in which, like, the music kinda turns over, like,
Mhm.
every 3 or 4 years, right? So, if you're talking about '79 and Rapper's Delight, then you kinda go up to '82, and then what you've got is, like, The Message, and you've got, Planet Rock. And I think, like, Run DMC kinda ushers in this next era,
Yeah.
and it really kinda takes off in 1986, um, but what's happening with Run DMC is a very smart and wise kind of way of thinking about how actually hip hop could swallow up
Mhm.
all of pop music,
Right.
right?
And it did.
It's already there in the theory of it, right? Like
Yeah.
when you've got the DJs like in the Bronx, like playing Kraftwerk, the Rolling Stones with Fela Kuti, along with like, the James Browns, the Jimmy Casters,
Right.
the all of those kinds of stuff. It's already in there. Like hip hop is already swallowing up all of these different types of genres, all of pop music, right? Um, but what Run DMC starts to do is to really place that into a template where they can, um, perform it and make it their own,
Mhm.
So, they're over there rapping over Billy Squier, right? They're really Billy Squier, the big beat,
Yep.
rock beats, like guitar rock
Here we
beats.
go, here we go.
Yeah, yeah, here we go, yo, here we go. And yeah, and so like that's some of their stuff. They're rapping over disco records, right? They're rapping
Mhm.
over like Cerrone, they're rapping over all these different kinds of things, and they're rapping over, of course, very famously later on, Aerosmith, right?
Right.
With Walk
It's
This
another
Way,
big moment. Yeah.
which becomes the sort of so they're actually thinking a lot about how do we take all of what we've been doing here and then we swallow up pop music and we go pop ourselves. We cross over ourselves. At this time, like radio is super segregated.
I
So you
know,
got
that's
the
something
white,
people don't realize, yeah.
yeah,
Less
yeah.
peop
It's really like you got your rock stations and then you've got your, black music stations.
Right.
Like, and
And by the
never
way,
the
even the
two
black
cross.
music stations weren't playing rap for a long time. They
No,
didn't.
absolutely.
They thought it
Yeah.
was, like, whatever, a fad, or they were even kind of, like, vaguely, like, thought it was lower. I don't know what they thought, but I've some of these Frankie Crocker, some of these guys were not into. So I grew up in New York City, and the only place you could really hear rap was at night on Fridays and Saturday nights. DJ Red Alert and Chuck Chill Out would have these and Mr. Magic, of course, would have these shows, and you could hear rap.
Yeah.
But that was it. Like, I
Yeah.
was I put my finger on the pause button, and they probably had a similar thing in Hawaii and the Bay Area. There was just a DJ that would play rap music at nights. Like, that was the only time it was relegated to nights.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
and so
right.
I don't know how anybody else was hearing rap at this time because I had to that was in New York, and I think those shows were exported. I remember one time hearing a DJ say, like, "We're being played in the UK," or whatever. But,
Mhm.
yeah, that was the only so it was hard to find this music, and which is hard to oh, WAMO in Pittsburgh has
Right.
apparently, yep.
Lady
Um,
B was one of the pioneers there. Yeah.
right.
And in Philadelphia. Yeah.
Yeah, so everybody has their own memory of that. But it's I think it's hard to imagine, I mean, for our kids, of course, to imagine there was a time when it was really hard to hear a certain type of music. It just wasn't readily available to you at any time. You had to actually show up at a time with your finger on a pause button because you couldn't find the records a lot of times. I
Yeah.
couldn't, and I was
Yeah.
looking for them.
Yeah.
And I certainly didn't know the new stuff. So anyway, yeah, I think that was interesting. Run DMC changed that a bit because they made it more, a little bit more mainstream.
Yeah, they were able to, like, actually break through the segregation at radio, right? So,
Yep.
on their very first record, they're making, like, rock box. They're bringing Eddie Martinez to kind of emulate Eddie Van Halen, and they're kind of thinking about that, like King of Rock, right? This
Yeah.
their second album and that kind of thing. So they're, like, consciously thinking about how do we break this to larger audiences? Like, we're not gonna we're too big for the
Yeah.
boxes that they've created for us right now is sort of the idea that they had, and I think that they did it really, really well, and so, when the Beastie Boys come along, um, like, you literally have this, like, strategy from, like, Run DMC and the Beastie Boys to try to cross over, like, to for the Beastie Boys to cross over from rock radio to black radio, soul music radio, R&B radio, whatever you wanna call it at that particular time, and for Run DMC to cross over from black radio to white rock radio.
Right.
And
And they
that's
didn't even
sort of the next kind of big breakthrough, I think, in the '80s.
yeah. And I feel like sometimes Run DMC did it reluctantly. Like, I had, Dave, his last name, Eggers, who wrote a book about Walk This Way. They weren't crazy about that record. Like, they didn't really wanna do that record, because that wasn't the stuff that they were that was happening at the parties and stuff like that. They felt like a little bit is that your understanding too? They
Yeah,
weren't
that, yeah, I think so. You know, I the thing that they do is they really break it open for all of these audiences to be able to come back together too. Because in some ways, like, the radio segregation is sort of, influencing the social segregation as well. Like, so, like, we experience it in high schools, right? Like, you're a rocker, right? You got long hair, you got a mullet, you're 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 vibing out to Quiet Riot or whatever, and like, or you're like, you're a b-boy and you're wearing athletic gear and stuff, and you're listening to Run DMC and all that. So I don't know. It's
Yeah, which so going, just if your template of 3 years, 2 to 3 years rap
yeah.
kinda changes. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong. So after Run DMC, when I started getting really excited about rap again, and I loved all that stuff, but is when like people like Eric B and Rakim came along. And to
Mhm.
me, like when I heard that Eric B record, Paid in Full, that was like something very different was happening. And I don't know, he had, and is that correct? And it seemed like that was when rap was changing again, where it was because, first of all, the tone was total, the flow was totally different. It was like this low key, kind of mellow way of rapping it. And I don't know, it felt so different at the time. It's funny. I have a personal trainer, so LA, and I turned him on to old school hip hop, and he's like discovering hip hop as I discovered it when I was 17 years old. Like, and he's like in his,
Uh,
which is awesome.
I kinda envy him. Yeah, like, I
Hey,
wish
exactly.
I could
And he's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Oh, I just listened to that,
Yeah.
EPMD record. That's really good." I'm like, "Oh my god." But it's the same way with me because I didn't really listen to hard rock until I was in my 40s, and I'm like, "That band Led Zeppelin was really revolutionary." But, so he's super into it, but he's like, "God," and it's cool to hear that he listens to Eric B. and Rakim and is, like, blown away by it, in 2026. To me, listening to it in 1987, like, I was blown away by it. So do you feel like they were I just saw Rakim in concert, by the way, here in LA, and it was incredible. But,
Yeah.
do you feel like that was kind of a different era? Like, that sort of brought in this other EPMD,
Yeah.
Rakim, yeah,
Yeah, so you could kinda mark 1986. 1986 is the year of the big
and
crossover.
Star.
That's the
Yeah,
year, yeah, that's the year that on the one hand, like, Run DMC is kind of they're coming out with, like, Walk
yeah,
This Way, and the Beastie Boys are kinda coming out with License to Ill and stuff. So the crossover is happening. But there's
right.
also this underground that's, building as well in New York City. Um, and the kind of at the heart of it is, like, people like Marley Marl who are experimenting with this new
DJ,
tool called the sampler, right?
yeah,
And so, Marley Marl is like the musical person who's kind of making a lot of these kinds of things happen.
right.
Like, taking what they've been doing live with two turntables and now being able to loop samples to create music. And so there's all these amazing breakthroughs that are happening in the sound and the texture of the music. Whereas before you had to rely on house bands, or you had to rely on like, sort of trained musicians did a lot of, like, Larry Smith basically produced a lot of the early Run DMC stuff. Um,
Larry put me inside his Cadillac. Is that Larry? Larry put
yeah,
me
exactly.
inside
Yeah,
his
yeah, yeah.
Cadillac. The
Got a
chauffeur drove
Cadillac,
off, hanging up on
took off and never came back. Right.
right, right,
That
right.
that Larry, absolutely, yeah. Um, so so uh so at the same time, like, this underground is kind of forming. And also we could also talk about, like, what's happening, like, all across the country after 1986 as well. Like, what's happening in Miami, what's happening
Right.
here in the Bay Area. These
So
regional scenes are kind of to
there's regional
function.
scenes, and I'm
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
focused, because I grew up in New York, I
Yeah,
only later found out there was all these things happening, like in New York, maybe later in New Orleans, but you said in
yeah.
Miami, the Bay Area. So yeah, sorry, this is a very New York centric,
It's all good. But I think it's really important because, like, what you have is, like, this sort of almost like a countercultural impulse
mhm,
happening, right, at the
always.
grassroots level, and it's fun. It's sort of, like, lifted up by radio shows like Red Alerts, by, a lot of the radio shows that
Marley
like
Marl had a
uh,
show. Yep,
Molly Ma had his own show, like, the Supreme Team, a lot of these other folks had shows that were, like, being able to lift up all of this brand new music, and teens are listening to this, you know? So
yes,
it's the young folks who are at the like they always are, and who are like they are now, even, like, at the edge of the aesthetic avant-garde, like, young people as, like, leading the avant-garde. That's like that was an exciting idea for me, right?
yeah,
As a young person in the '80s, like, yo, like, not only is this incredible music, it's like this stuff is like this stuff is the most futuristic, like, out there, like, leading edge stuff that anybody could be doing. Like, that was exciting, you know?
That was
So
exciting, like punk rock,
so it's
yeah,
so, like, to hear Rakim like that and hear him, like, sort of Rakim comes from, an R&B family and a jazz family,
yeah, that's
you
right.
know? And so he's thinking about the sound of a saxophone.
Right, I've heard him
He's
say
right.
that it
He's
was like
thinking
doing a
about
solo of a John Coltrane solo or something, right.
exactly, and so he's thinking about rhythm in a completely different way than, like, "And the chicken tastes like wood." Like,
Yeah, yeah,
he's not thinking about, rhymes in this sort of, like, very strict kind of, measure. Like, it's almost like like, whatever, the poet's breaking out of iambic pentameter or
yeah,
whatever,
very
right?
syncopated, it's very the
It's
flow is yeah,
syncopated, and he's thinking a lot about, like how to like run lines across like beats and then he's also because he's from the 5% Nation, he's also in this mode where he's following in Africa Bambaataa and the Zulu Nation's footsteps. He's sort of
mm,
and Sun Ra and Lee Scratch Perry and the Afrofuturists, right?
right,
He's he's like he's like talking about traveling at magnificent miles throughout the universe, right?
yeah,
So he's sort of also like in a lot of and also doing the ghetto, right?
mhm,
Like talking about the ghetto and doing it through a meditation. Like you literally see when he's rapping the ghetto, like you see him sitting like lotus style and like
yeah,
meditating on what's happening right outside, the shelter wherever he's in. So it's just very powerful stuff, and I think that this is why folks start calling, this particular period the golden age of hip
yeah, this
hop.
is when it
This
starts,
decade,
yeah,
yeah.
very
So
poetic at this part.
yeah, mhm,
Um, we can't deny the importance of Yo MTV Raps too,
no,
although
yeah,
I
like
didn't
2000%.
I that was what, like, '88, I think I wrote down is when it
Yeah,
debuted,
mhm,
and, I think for a lot of people listening, that might be the first time they ever really started finding out about rap, or at least knowing that it was more than just Run DMC and, like, a few of the hit like, there was a whole movement, right? And it brought it to the country and the world, really.
yeah.
So that show was very important, in the history of rap, certainly in the '80s.
Yeah,
And
I
then
think so. I think Fab, like doing that show and then like Fab and Jonathan Demme making the decision to like go to all of these different cities where things are happening. Like I still
yeah,
never gonna forget like Fab, they're in the back of a pickup truck, like driving through South Los Angeles, right? Like
yeah, it's
with
wild.
NWA, right? Like
Right.
that stuff is it was amazing because then you started seeing how all of these different types of scenes were connecting up.
Right.
Everybody had a different kind of sound, a different kind of vibe, but Young TV Raps by being something that was being beamed, like, across the US, across borders, all around, and then also representing different parts of this nascent hip hop nation, that was really, really, really powerful. Again, I think Fat Book is gonna just be amazing. I can't wait to
I
just
can't wait. I mean, I
yeah.
actually was pitched to have him come on my podcast, and he's like a legend. I mean,
You
I think I've
should,
talked
yeah.
before. I think I've talked before because he had another book out.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's amazing. So we're gonna have Fat Five Freddy on for sure.
good.
All right. So as we round up the '80s here, uh, it feels like you mentioned NWA. You cannot talk about the '80s without talking about the sort of advent of, like, the West Coast, right? And, like you said, there's scenes happening in lots of different cities, but the ones that really break out and sort of change things, at least, or become more mainstream, are like what's going on with NWA and the West Coast. Because the West Coast, we were talking about, like, I didn't grow up I'm in LA now, and I've been here for the last 20 years, but I talked to my friends who grew up, in this era, and they were like, yeah, it was really kinda like before Dre and Ice Cube and all those guys came around, West Coast rap is very different. Like the sequin, they're wearing like sequin, like,
Yeah,
like it's
yeah,
like kind of
yeah.
disco-y. I don't even know what you call that kind of music. But then nobody was really, well, they were. The thing is, they were doing that kind of like Schoolie D was doing that kind of like gangster type music, a little bit earlier, and Ice T and stuff. But for some reason, it kind of like it resonated in like 89, 88, 89, right? It seems like there was like this, I don't know why, but just like the West Coast suddenly took over rap music. And that was like
Yeah,
the next era.
yeah, yeah, I think that that's true. I mean, we're missing a big piece of this right now,
Okay, good. What are we missing?
which is Public Enemy
Oh,
and
yeah, I love
Boogie
Boogie.
Down Productions and
Gee,
MC Lyte,
yeah,
Queen
that's true.
Latifah, and, like,
Oh my
So
god.
like part of what I think what's happening with the evolution of the underground is you're getting a group of folks who are really inspired by the student activism that's happening on the campuses. And
Mm,
like, except for like you and me and everybody maybe on this, like who are tuning into this podcast right now, it's like people don't realize that there was a lot of activism, like, among
right.
young people during the 1980s. People think it was like the grand narrative is like folks were like
We're
apathetic
happy.
or
Make
whatever.
America great again. That's like some weird like era, like this was like a happy time and like everybody was just I
Yeah.
see these YouTube videos that people like Gen Zers make like, I just wish I was alive in the 80s. Like it was great. You didn't have a phone and I'm like, no, listen
No.
something. A lot of people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the anti-apartheid movement was a catalyst for all
Right.
this in the mid to late '80s, and so, out of that, you get folks like Public Enemy, you get, like, KRS-One and Boogie Down Productions, you get Queen Latifah, you get, like, these folks, and I think on the West Coast, what you have is literally, like, they're sitting there going, "We're gonna be the opposite of all that.
Yep.
We're gonna
Yeah.
be the opposite," and Public Enemy making incredible music with the Bomb Squad that's just like it's like it's
The
it's
best.
got the energy and the bombast of punk rock, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
who
Some of
would
my
have ever
favorite
thought
rappers of all time.
to kind of like have a
The
kettle
clock.
whistle as a hook for a record, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Mhm.
I mean, it wasn't. It was like, it was Maceo like playing a solo
That
and stuff.
Rebel Without a Pause, that
Right.
it is,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
And like this song that like literally every time he dropped it, they couldn't play it in the nightclubs because every time he played it, fights would break out. There was just that energy of
I heard
like
Chucky, interview
aggression
once,
kind
he
of.
said, like, "No, nobody could dance to our music." Like, it's like he's like, "You put our music on in the club and everybody stops dancing." I
They
mean, it was
stop
great.
dancing or they start rioting. Yeah,
You're
totally.
right. Yeah.
2000%. And but it was powerful and it was like it really kind of captured a moment. And I think that Dre is listening to this and he's like, I have to be able to get at that kind of aesthetic, like that kind of immediacy that just reaches out and grabs you by the neck, right?
Yeah.
But like this is not like we're not down for all this like, you know, political stuff, right? We just want to like we want to do all the things that we want to do. We want to drink, we want to smoke, we want to like get into it with people that we don't like, we want to like do all the things that we're going to do to women. That's basically like their thing. They're like 100% in,
Yeah.
So they're like, can we attach like if Public Enemy is gonna be like 100% super ego, like, can we be like 100% id, like, and have
Yeah.
the same kind of vibe? And that's like, I think the vibe that they're going for. And then they get um Jerry Heller, who is like, this stuff needs to go to the kids in Venice.
Mm.
Like, this
Yeah.
needs to go to the kids in Orange County. Like, this is what they're thinking at first, right? They're thinking regionally. They're not thinking about nationally. But Jerry's like, this needs to get to white kids, like point
Right.
blank. And so that's what they try to do with this. And it does, and it crosses
Well,
over. And it's also speaking again to like this like intensity that's happening on the streets. Daryl Gates, chief police chief Daryl Gates is doing all of his crap
right.
um, and rounding up young people, like they're putting curfews on young people. The gang wars and the violence and gun violence is reaching a peak. And so Public Enemy, um, like, doesn't necessarily speak to that, right? To that directly, right? And
No.
NWA kind of captures
Right.
some of that.
Kinda
So
come back
that's
to
yeah,
the message, but 7 years later. Yeah. Kinda like
mhm,
what they were doing.
yeah,
Um, I mean, we could keep going. I'm gonna stop it at 90 because I don't know, because we could keep literally talk for the next 4 hours, and I wanna be mindful of your time.
yeah.
And I would love to do an episode sometime of, like, your favorite Gen X rappers because,
Oof,
uh, it's a tough one.
that's
Because
hard.
we kinda stop now, like, we start getting into an era now where some of my favorite rappers start emerging, like Tribe Called Quest
Yeah.
um, and Brand Nubian and all these guys from that early 90s era. And but how do you just do peop I'm sure people have asked you this and you probably don't like to answer it, but who would you say are the 3 best MCs? Like, does that go do you have can you even do it?
It's hard, man. It's really hard. I mean, if we're limiting it to the '80s, maybe it's a slight bit easier, but, like,
Yeah,
I'd
like, we
say
limit to the '80s, is it like I would well, let me think, because then you'd have to, like okay, I have one that's a really off, because he just I would say, like, because of his importance and because how much he influenced. So there's this guy, Schoolie D, and a lot of people don't know about Schoolie D,
yeah. Yeah,
who
yeah,
came
yeah.
out of Philadelphia,
Yeah.
who I actually once had on my podcast because I found him. I tracked him down. It was hard to find him, but I did find him. He
Yeah.
started making these records called Gucci Time and PSK, and he designed all his own art on, like, the label and stuff, but it was like the original gangster rap, and in fact, Ice-T has said, "I was just kinda copying Schoolie D,"
Mhm,
like
mhm.
so Schoolie D is one I don't know if he's the best rapper, but I think he's a very, very important rapper that's often overlooked. I've mentioned Rakim. I just love Rakim. There's something about his voice and his flow. It's timeless to me. Like I could listen to it over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Um, and then, you know, then it gets hard with number 3. Trying to think. I love Guru from Gangstar.
Mm,
He died, rest in peace. Um, and I'm not gonna say, like Run DMC, I love those guys. I wouldn't say they're like my favorite rappers of all time. Um,
mm.
I know that Kool Moe Dee gets really mad when he's not put on these lists. He's publicly gotten very who are some of your I mean, you're looking at we have got to look up like a list of rappers to even be able to decide. What do you guys say? Let's put some in the comments. Best rappers from the
Let's hear that.
80s.
Let's definitely hear that.
If
I
somebody
I think
says, you know,
what's that?
somebody put nobody put Ski-Lo, but like there's like funny rappers that from Yo MTV Raps that were like one hit wonders.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say like, well, Snoop is more 90s, right?
Snoop's definitely
Dre,
yeah,
yeah. And then Jay-Z comes much later. I don't know. I know it's a hard one.
yeah.
So we got, let me
I
see
mean,
who
for
else.
me, I would definitely say, like, yeah, I think everybody has Rakim on the top of their list. I mean, Chuck was just
Yeah.
the
He's
author
incredible.
like, he just had that authority, he had that impact, from the first, like, he just has to say bass, and you're like, "Okay, like,
Oh,
just
who?
whatever you say next, I'm listening to." Um,
By the way,
and
Chuck's kind of an old guy. Like Chuck was born in 60. No offense, if Chuck's listening. Uh, but I mean, he's a boomer. A lot of these guys
yeah,
that
yeah,
we
yeah.
loved growing up were boomers. Like, they were old, like, Africa Bambaataa is a boomer. These
But
guys are
even,
born
like, when was Rakim born? Rakim's, like, in the early '60s too, I don't know.
yeah, he's
It's
probably
all it's all kind of a weird, like, I
a
don't know.
mix of, like, guys that were born in the yeah, like, this late early '60s, and then, but then you get, like, guys like Phife Dawg and, um Q-Tip that were born in that are like my age. Um, uh, but yeah, okay. I like Chuck D. I'm gonna take Chuck D, Rakim. I feel like we need a third guy. And it could be a girl. We haven't even talked about like Salt and Peppa, and you mentioned Queen Latifah.
Yeah.
There weren't as many female rappers back in the day, unfortunately.
I loved Light,
Oh,
MC
Light.
when
Oh, I
she
love
came
her.
out, like, "I Cram to Understand You," like, she had that vibe of, like, "You know what? Like, don't even try to come at me with this, like, girl rapper stuff." Like,
Yep.
she had such presence, and,
Yeah.
uh, you know yeah,
I
I
do. I
love
love Light.
MC
That's a
Light.
great
I love
one.
MC Light.
And
Um,
I love Roxanne Shanté's voice. Like, I
yeah,
love her cracked, voice, the
yeah,
way
yeah,
she raps, and
yeah,
her, Roxanne,
yeah.
Roxanne is one of the great sort of the live version of that is, like, one of the great, uh, recordings. Yeah, I think this is a very impressive list.
So
Um,
much. I mean, we're not even talking about Pos and Dave, from
it's true, we
De
didn't
La
even talk about
Soul.
De La Soul. Oh my god, I didn't even put them in my
And
that was a
yeah,
trans
who
tran
they're like, probably all time for me.
yeah,
Um, and then
that's
Cube, like Cube really steps out after the '90s, but I think,
Autumn's
man,
a LL Cool
Cube,
J. Where do you think LL Cool J stands in? We didn't even mention LL Cool J, and sometimes I feel like he might be overlooked. I mean, you know, I guess people have mixed feelings about LL Cool J. I mean, I love him and I love the early stuff like the I Can't Live Without My Radio and, um, that stuff.
yeah,
Well, I know I like a lot of LL Cool J actually when I think back on his canon. Um, yeah, where do you think What's
And, you
his
know, like, I do love, like, LL's, like, early stuff too, like, I'm Bad,
Yeah,
um, you know, all of that type of stuff is, like, kind of in every DJ's crate because,
yeah,
like, the
yeah,
the energy that he's carrying on that, like, just and then how he just punctuate like Rick Rubin giving him these beats that he can, like, punctuate every line,
yeah,
Um, like, LL Cool J is hard as hell, like, he got that guitar stab and, it's just yeah, LL is amazing, and always gets me amped for sure, definitely.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Big ups to LL. All right. And I feel like now that you mentioned De La Soul, I'm like, oh, we missed that story. I mean, the '80s could literally. I mean, so anybody who says the '80s, like like doesn't sort of credit the '80s for being tremendously probably one of the most important decades of rap, if not the most important. I mean, you're crazy. Like the stuff that was coming out of the '80s is just timeless and innovative and exciting. And I mean, you could just go on and on and
I
on
mean,
with that.
for me, I feel like, like, I read a lot about, like, arts movements, music movements, social movements, and the really interesting period is this expansion period, like, so, like, just after the Big Bang, right?
Right.
Where
Yeah.
everything like, all these possibilities are available, and, the 1990s is when things, like, really begin to take off for hip hop, like, globally,
Yeah.
right? This is, like, the big crossover period is the 1990s. Um, and the end of the 1990s is a lot less fun than the beginning of the 1990s for
Yeah.
me, but
Sure.
you don't even get to that without having this, like, sort of huge explosion,
Right. Biggie
like,
and Tupac.
expanding yeah, you don't get any of that unless you, like, talk about the '80s and what all these folks kinda set in play.
What
Um,
do you what do you think, and this is the risk of us sounding like old men here, but what do you think?
we're already old men, man, it's
Yeah,
all good.
exactly. The
I just
state of
own
hip
it.
hop now, like hip hop has
Yeah.
changed. I mean, it's gone through so many iterations. It's still around. It's more influential probably than it's ever been. My kids are 16 and 20. They love even current hip hop. And they love, I mean, thankfully,
You said
it's because they were
even
raised.
you said even current hip
Yeah, I know.
hop.
I guess I've revealed myself. No, but I like a lot of the current there is some good stuff, current stuff, and thankfully, my son, who's really up on this stuff, will play me, stuff, I'll be, "Oh my god, that's good." But of course, I always like the kind of hip hop that I like now has a name. Didn't have a name back then, it's called, what, boom bop? Or,
Boom bap,
boom
yeah,
boom
boom
bap?
bap. Yeah,
Boom
yeah.
bap? It goes
The
boom bap.
boom, the boom bap,
Boom
yeah,
bap. Yeah, which is kind of has a certain beat, and I didn't realize, like, I guess it kinda and now the hip hop, it doesn't always have that beat unless they kind of go old school and they start playing the stuff that I love. But what do you think about, the state of hip hop right now? Or, I mean, are you still as excited about it as you were back then?
I mean, how could I be,
Yeah.
I'm very middle-aged now, it's like,
Oh, middle
I
age.
like, I mean, music is still, like, so much a part of my life, but I don't think you can ever have that kind of zeal that you do when you're a teenager
Yeah,
or a young person in your 20s when you're like,
you're formative.
like, we're not like, we're gonna go and see my old friend Lyrics Born tonight with, like, playing with, like, a 20-year-old guy named Seiji Oda, and we're gonna have a lot of fun, but are we gonna have as much fun as we did the first time, like, LB took the stage, like, back in 1992? Like, no, we're not. Like, we're
Yeah,
just not. It's like it is what it is, but, um, I don't follow it as assiduously as I used to, and it's
yeah,
impossible to. What I feel like is, like, we're now in this space where it's so big
yeah. It's not a
that we can choose, like, oh, like, let's listen to just the folks who are working in the sort of boom bap kinda, like,
yeah,
classification or whatever, like, let's enjoy, like, Run the Jewels, and let's enjoy, I don't know, Freddie Gibbs. Let's enjoy, like,
yeah. Those are the ones that
let's
I love.
enjoy, like, the folks who are working kind of maybe, like, what the kids might think is in the tradition, you know? It
Yeah,
doesn't mean that I'm closed off to any of the other stuff, it just means that I'm not gonna be able to enjoy it the way
yeah,
that I might have when I first heard, like, "So What You Saying," you know?
yeah,
And that's all good, that's just part of life. I love, though, that I can have these conversations with my kids, and we can share playlists, and I could just be like, "Oh, okay." Like, one of my kids is a recording artist, and the other makes videos, and And so they're in the middle of,
AMX recording artist. Can we get his stuff on
yeah,
Spotify?
sure. Yeah, on Bandcamp,
Okay.
Spotify, sure, all the platforms. Johnny Chang, he's
Yeah.
didn't have a, you
How old
know,
is he?
he is in his late 20s now.
Okay. I only
So
ask
he's
because my
been
son wants to is a recording artist as well.
okay. So he's been doing it, and everybody can be these days. It's amazing,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
But he's been doing it for, over, like, since he was probably 12 or 13.
Yep.
Born in it. Like we grew into it, and we helped to make it, and we helped to build it up. Um, and they
Is
never
he like
left
the
him
stuff that
alone.
you grew up with? Or did
Yeah.
your so do
Yeah,
I.
they were forced to listen to all that when they
Yeah.
were kids, but
Right. I love it.
it's not like, well, I guess I feel that way about my parents' music now too when I go back and I listen to Nat King Cole, or, or
But it's
RJ
different though, like,
Wilco,
I
that
find it
kind of,
interesting because
yeah.
when I was a kid, I would my parents my dad was a professional composer, so he listened
Um,
to a lot of classical music, and a lot of jazz, bebop jazz. I didn't really appreciate it, but if I were listening to the music that was popular, 40 years ago in 1980, I would be listening to, like,
yeah,
big band stuff, right? So
yeah.
we that was so different and so, like, out of our milieu, and nobody liked that kind of music. But now kids will listen to music that's 40, 45 years old and be like, "This is dope," which is really
Yeah.
interesting.
It's
Yeah.
like it feels like, it's kind of collapsed in some ways,
Right.
and it's kind of expanded.
Yeah.
And so it, like, I was doing a class with a bunch of, college students last night. These are 18 and 19-year-olds, and they're like, "Yeah, I listen to everything." And it's like they can. Like,
Yeah.
their identities are not tied into like, are some Breakfast Club. Are you the rocker? Are you the, are you the punker? Are you the goth? Are you the
Yeah.
hip
Sound like Brett.
hopper? Right? It's not that
Yeah.
like that anymore. And thank God in a way, and also, like, there's a way in which we can miss, like, maybe the ways that we were, um, maybe the ways that, like, like you were saying earlier, we had to go out and get, the things we had to develop this, we had to, like, taste was
It's
something that
effort.
you acquired, right?
Yeah.
Like, you literally, like, had to build it, and I think these days, um, it's much more democratic, and I think it's also, um much more diffuse.
Right.
I can see what the old folks like us have to say about, like, these kids have no taste. They don't
Yeah.
know how to separate what's good from what's bad. Um, I don't know.
Right. I don't agree with
I don't necessarily feel any kind of way about that, but I can see why some folks would be like that.
Yeah.
I
No, it's a different the way they consume is so different. What are you so let's take this last and talk about what you've got coming out. You've got this great book on Bruce Lee, which is called what? It's called I had it in my intro.
Vladimir Echo, Bruce Lee in the
What
Making of Asian America. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And your Substack, Notes from the Edge, which,
Uh-huh.
is connected to this. What else? Is there any other cool projects you're working on?
I do. I have a couple of things that I'm at the beginning of the beginning of the beginning of, one of which would hopefully be very musical and that kind of thing. So I'm really hoping that we're able to get this off the ground. Still a little bit too early. Like, I just put this book out last September. Got to tour it, and
Oh, that's amazing.
I'm still doing some events around the country on that, and getting to talk a little bit about Bruce, about Asian American history. um we're kind of on the edge of, um what could be some really more difficult years. The 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 end of the first Trump administration was very difficult for us,
Mm,
as Asian Americans,
right.
and I think that kind of, like, spurred me in a lot of ways to be able to, like, organize and finish this book. And now, like, with all the sort of whatever saber rattling around China and all of the
Mm,
wild stuff that's kind of happening in Southeast Asia, um, in, the West Philippine Sea or the South China Sea, depending on who you are, or, what's happening in terms of the border crisis in Southeast Asia, and all these other what's happening across the Pacific. Like, I feel, like, called to do a lot more, work around being able to help folks understand like what the deep histories are of this place that I grew up in and this place here, like we are, right? You're in LA, I'm here in the Bay Area at the edge of the Pacific, and how it's really going to impact us. Um, I think over the next few decades.
That's really important stuff. I'm glad you're part of that movement to draw attention to all that stuff. That's exciting. I well, let me give my little promo here. I love to just tell everybody
Yeah.
that if that's listening that if you go to genxcon.com, I am hosting or trying to put together an event called Gen X Con, which is basically a gathering where us Gen Xers can meet in one place, preferably a mall. I'm looking at mall spaces and and learn basically it's a little bit of a celebration of the past, but also the future. And there'll be a sort of a learning track, sort of looking at where we are in our age right now, whether it's empty nesting or sandwich generation kind of stuff, or even maybe you could host a panel on being Asian American and a Gen Xer right now. I'd love to
Mhm.
learn more about that. Um, uh, you know, or dealing with that. And then, but there will also be, we're also talking to artists about coming and performing live from that era. Maybe some of the artists that we talked about today. That would be kind of exciting. And we'll have some arcade machines. We will have a food court with Orange Julius. I shouldn't. I don't even know if they're going to happen yet. But this is what I'm
We
planning.
have hot dog on
And
a stick and all of these.
exactly, hot dog on a stick.
Yeah.
There'll be a Sam Goodies, because we mentioned Sam Goodies. Yeah, so it's genxcon.com and you can sign up. So please do that because I'm just trying to build a mailing list now and gauge interest and once we get a lot of interest, then we can start getting some sponsorships and that kind of thing. So I just wanted to plug that since I've got 52 people watching. And if you're in the LA area tonight, I'm DJing tonight. I don't know if you
Ah,
caught this, Jeff. DJing the early bird special at the Room in Santa Monica. You can get tickets on Eventbrite, and I just play 80s and 90s music all night long. And it starts at 7 p.m. This is for like old people. So it starts, I shouldn't say old people, for people who want to get to bed by 10 p.m. It's goes from 7 to 10. And it's really
so
fun.
age appropriate.
Very
See?
age appropriate
Yeah.
because yeah, I'm so happy that it's over by 10 because I remember those days when I would have to lug my crates and it would be over at 2 in the morning and I just be like,
Yeah.
"Oh."
Yeah.
No
Can't do
crates.
that anymore. Bad back.
No.
Yeah.
No
No,
crates.
that's not
I use it
gonna
I
happen.
use an electronic deck. Anyway,
You ever
Jeff
play Planet Rock?
what's that?
You ever play Planet Rock?
I will. In tribute to this, I will definitely play Planet Rock. I
It's
love Planet Rock, and we'll see if people know it because not everybody knows Planet Rock. How many people here listening know Planet Rock? I mean, how could you not know Planet Rock, right? I'm putting a heart there because, but some people don't know Planet Rock.
yeah.
It's one of those, yeah. I feel like there's people who know it and there's people who don't. And if you don't know it, friend
Well,
of mine,
once
Calvin
it
Klein's no
comes on,
friend of
that
mine.
everybody, if they thought they didn't know it when it comes
Yeah,
on.
then you hear the beat. Yeah, you're like, oh, that's Planet Rock. That's Planet Rock.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff, this has been I'm so enlightening and interesting, and thank you so much for your time. And I'm just so excited you do what you do. Follow Jeff,
Likewise.
uh, subscribe. All right, man. Thank you so much, and thank you for doing this experiment with us. I don't even know how to get off. Oh, here it is. The M. It's like, I don't even know how do you even turn this thing off. But all right, Jeff. Talk to you
Thank you.
soon.
Take
Take
care.
care.
All
Bye.
right.
I said a hip hop, the hip it to the hip hop. You don't stop the rocker to the bang bang boogie. Say up jump the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie to beat. Now what you hear is not a test. I'm rapping to the beat, and me, the groove, and my friends are gonna try to move your feet. You see, I am Wonder Mike, and I like to say hello to the black, to the white, the red, and the brown, the purple, and yellow. But first, I gotta bang bang the boogie to the boogie. Say up jump the boogie to the bang bang boogie. Let's rock. You don't stop, rock the rhythm that I make that song. Check it out, I'm the CASN, the OVA, and the rest is FLY. You see, I go by the code of the doctor of the mix, and these reasons I'll tell you why. You see, I'm 6'1", and I'm tons of fun, and I dress to a T. You see, I got more clothes than Muhammad Ali, and I dress so viciously. I got bodyguards, I got 2 big cars, I definitely ain't the whack. I got a Lincoln Continental and a sunroof Cadillac. So after school, I take a dip in the pool, which is really on the wall. I got a color TV so I can see the Knicks play basketball. Hear me talking about checkbook, credit cards, more money than a sucker could ever spend. But I wouldn't give a sucker or a punk from the rock, not a dime till I made it again. Everybody go, hotel, motel, what you gonna do today? Cause I'm gonna get a fly girl, gonna get some spank and drive off in a death OJ. Everybody go, hotel, motel, holiday inn. Say if your girl starts acting up, then you take her friend. I'm Master G, my mellow is on you, so what you gonna do?
Well, it's on and on and on and on and on. The beat don't stop until the break of dawn. I said a M-A-S, a T-E-R, a G with a double E. I said I go by the unforgettable name of the man they call a Master G. Well, my name is known all over the world by all the foxy ladies and the pretty girls. I'm going down in history as the baddest rapper that ever could be. Now I'm feeling the highs and you're feeling the lows. The beat starts getting into your toes. You start pumping your fingers and stomping your feet and moving your body while you're sitting in your seat. And then damn, they start doing the freak. I said bam, right out of your seat. Then you throw your hands high in the air. You rock it to the rhythm, shake your dairy air. You rock it to the beat without a care. Cruise to the show, I shot MCs for the affair. Now I'm not as tall as the rest of the gang, but I rap to the beat just the same. I got a little face and a pair of rhyme eyes. All I'm here to do, ladies, is hypnotize. Sing it on and on and on and on and on. The beat don't stop until the break of dawn. I sing it on and on and on and on and on like a hot butter. The pop, the pop, the pop, give it, pop, the pop, pop. You don't dare stop or come alive, y'all. Give me what you got. I guess by now you can take a hunch and find that I am the baby of the bunch, but that's okay. I still keep in stride, cause all I'm here to do is just a wiggle your behind. Sing it on and on and on and on. The beat don't stop until the break of dawn. I sing it on and on and on and on and on. Rock, y'all. Do it on the floor. I'm gonna freak you here, I'm gonna freak you there. I'm gonna move you out of this atmosphere, cause I'm one of a kind and I'll shock your mind. I put the jiggles in your behind. I say the 1, 2, 3, 4, come on, girls. I get on the floor. Come alive, y'all. Give me what you got, cause I'm guaranteed to make you rock. I said 1, 2, 3, 4. Tell me one, the mic, what are you waiting for?
To the hip hop, the hippie to the hippie, the hip hopper. You don't stop, rock it to the bang bang. The boogie say up, jump the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie beat. Well, skittle bebop, we rock a Scooby Doo. And guess what, America, we love you. Cause you rock in a row with us so much so you can rock till you're 101 years old. I don't mean to brag, I don't mean to boast, but we're like hot butter on a breakfast toast. Rock it out, baby bubba to the boogie, the bang bang, the boogie to the beat. Beat is so unique. Come on, everybody, and dance to the beat. Ever went over a friend's house to eat and the food just ain't no good? I mean, the macaroni soggy, the peas are mushed, and the chicken tastes like wood. So you try to play it off like you think you can by saying that you're full. And then your friend says, Mama, he just being polite. He ain't finished. Oh, that's bull. So your heart starts pumping and you think of a lie and you say that you already ate. And your friend says, man, there's plenty of food, so he piles some more on your plate. But while the sticky food's steaming, your mind starts to dreaming of the moment it's time to leave. And then you look at your plate and your chicken's slowly rotting into something that looks like cheese. So you say, that's it, I got to leave this place. I don't care what these people think. I'm just sitting here making myself nauseous with this ugly food that stinks. So you bust out the door while it's still closed, still sick from the food you ate. And then you run to the store for quick relief from a bottle of KO Pectate. And then you call your friend 2 weeks later to see how he has been. And he says, I understand about the food,